In this journey that we've been on over the last number of years, Sandy and I have been really engaged in what's going on online and who the influencers are, and especially in the early days of social media, she and I really became heavily involved on the very front side, the very early adopter side, and we had people we looked up to, and we had people that were that one step ahead of us, that were doing things in a different way. And one of those guys who had actively grabbed social media and saw it immediately, much like we had, but actually technically a little bit earlier than we had, was Gary Vaynerchuk. And he had a Wine Library TV was the program. He had a podcast or a video blog on YouTube. Actually, I think he was on Vimeo or something, but doesn't matter. It was online, and it was a daily dose of reviewing wine. Well, I'm not much of a wine drinker, but I really enjoyed the authenticity of who he was and what he talked about. And he was very real. He was the guy that you saw on the screen was the same guy that you met in person. And I very much believe in that authenticity, that if we're not who we are in person as we are online, then there's a disconnect. And when we're online, we need to be that same person. So that's something that we've strove to continue to do, is be authentically us. This is us. No cuts and retakes and try to snazz it up and make you think we're something we're not. This is who we are. And that's what Gary Vaynerchuk was to me in the early days. He was just an authentically interesting guy. And then fortunately we got to meet him and spend some time at Wine Library and interview him, and we're going to share some of that footage. And that's the same guy that I watched on video, online, every day, was the same guy that I spent hours with there at Wine Library at their wine and liquor store in New Jersey. And that was really interesting for us to see that, because here's this guy doing this thing, and there was no falseness. It's the same guy that we saw on video, was the same guy, treat us exactly the same, gracious and wonderful and nice and friendly. It wasn't made up for online, for video. It was who he was. And that was a really good example for me as to be who I authentically am all the time. So that's Gary V, and I hope you enjoy his material that we have shared, that we've pulled out of our vintage vault. Take video, and you can reuse it years and years later, and you can see that he really is that same guy. If you see him online and see him in this video where we were live with him, he's definitely the same guy.